Hello, everyone. Welcome to Past Marathon Predictive Analytics Use Cases. We're excited that you can join us today for Yana Berkovich session, Azure Machine Learning Studio and PowerBI. This past marathon consists of 5 consecutive live webinars delivered by expert speakers from the past community. This session will be recorded and posted online after the event. You will be receiving an email letting you know that when the recordings are available. My name is Eric Romero, and I'm here with Pass HQ. And I have a few introductory slides before I hand over the reins to Yana. Next, please. If you require any technical assistance, please type your question into the question pane located on the right side of your screen, and someone will assist you immediately. This question pane is also where you may ask any questions through the presentation. So please feel free to enter your questions at any time, and once we get to the Q&A portion of the session, we'll be reading your questions out loud to the speaker. You're also able to zoom in the presentation content by using the zoom button located at the top of the presentation window. Please note that there will be a short evaluation at the end of the session. Your feedback is very important to us, so please take a moment to complete this session evaluation. This will be popping up after the webinar in your web browser. Next, please. I'd like to take a moment to thank our presenting sponsor, Kingsway Soft. The staging of this past marathon would not be possible without their generous support, and they are the reason this event is available for free. If you would like to learn more about sponsors and signing up for information on how to help you, please visit our sponsor page of the Past Marathon website. Next, please. Past Summit is Past Community's flagship event, and it's happening November 6th to 9 in Seattle, Washington. Past Summit is the largest conference for technical professionals who leverage the Microsoft Data Platform. Immerse yourself in deep dive technical sessions, learn best practices, and discover new tips and tricks. For more information and to register, please visit pastsummit.com. Next, please. This past marathon session is presented by Yana Berkovich. Yana is a people-oriented professional, aspiring product manager with 11 years of process analysis, building solutions, customization, developing, managing, and training experience. Yana has been working with Power BI, Oracle SQL, and SQL Server for the past few years. She's a data enthusiast with international experience in many companies. As BA, team leader, and everything SharePoint and Office 365. Next, please. And without further ado, here is Yana with Azure Machine Learning Studio and Power BI. Yana?
Hi, so my name is Yana, and it was a little bit too long of an introduction. So I would like to talk to you about Azure Machine Learning Studio today and Power BI. Power BI is something that I use daily in my work, and Azure Machine Learning Studio is something that I am very enthusiastic about and did the course, which we'll also discuss later on. Okay. So Azure Machine Learning Lab and Power BI, why are we using, this is our agenda for today. Why are we using those tools? How we can compare those tools, getting the data, pre-processing the data, a little bit about prediction model for whoever is not familiar with this methodology, which I suspect most of you are. And the quick summary. I will try to do some of the things using the live examples, meaning actually opening Power BI and Azure Machine Learning Studio, and we'll see how things go. So why are we even talking about this? So data science, as Gartner defines it, is started from information, and eventually the goal is to optimize this information. So what we are dealing with is, first of all, the descriptive analytics. So what actually happened? If we have a simple scenario, such as traffic or weather or any kind of other scenarios, we are describing what actually happened, what are our fact table, if you so please. Then we are running the diagnostics. Why did it happen? We want to know why. And we are going from the data itself, the information itself, to the insight. And what will eventually eventually we're going to the predictive analytics. What will happen? And this is where our tool, the Azure Machine Learning Studio, is helping us to understand what will happen, or at least predict it with some sort of certainty. And the later on is how can we make it happen? And this is changing one parameter is going to affect the entire model. So this is sensitivity reports if we are using a regression or any kind of other methods. And my next slide is also something that Gartner has produced back in 2016, and machine learning was basically in the hype, in the peak of emerging technologies. And actually, we are in 2018 now, and machine learning is still there together with predictive analytics, and Azure is one of the leaders in that realm. So this is exactly why are we talking about it today, because for several years now, it is in the top of the hype. Things are developing there, and there are more and more organizations that are getting into this and trying to implement it for their scenarios. So what is decision support that we are talking about? Just a second, slide is loading. So James Taylor, he's the leader of the decision management solution in IBM. He described it as what this is how it looks like. We make a decision, and then we have the analytic inspection, and eventually we are getting the data to support it. This is the wrong way. The right way, the way the data analyst field, the entire field is dedicated to, is trying to make it look it like this, from the information to the analytic insight to make actually the decision, and eventually have the key performance indicator for analysis following the decision process. This is very important thing to understand for us before we even go into the tool, because this is exactly the process that we want to go through. Power BI is helping us to understand some of it, because Power BI is visualizing the data for us. If we remember the first slide with how Gartner defines the data analytics, we can see that the first, the visualization part, visualize our data, is exactly what Power BI is doing for us. Later on, we can also add some KPIs, but we cannot, or we are very limited with the prediction, which is how future decisions can be better. This is where the machine learning is coming to our aid. All right, so the poll now, the first one, please. All right. Now we have time for some poll. Right, any results? Okay, so my question to you was, who was familiar with the machine learning studio, and who has Who has worked with it? All right, so I am looking at the results, and 12% of you guys has actually worked with some and have some knowledge of the machine learning studio. So it's great. I'll see your comments and questions later on. And so my introductory slides, thank you so much. We can close the poll. So my introductory slide about Machine Learning Studio is going to help the rest of you to at least understand where are we at. Okay, introductory slide. There we go. So what is Machine Learning Lab Studio? It's built on the top of the machine learning capabilities of several Microsoft products and services. So it's part of the Cortana and part of Azure, of course, as its name implies. Its main components are the lab and the gallery. And something that is very important to remember that it's only cloud-based tool in Azure. That means that you cannot actually download it to your desktop and work with it like you are working with Power BI. Now, who is working with the Machine Learning Studio? The data analysts, the statisticians, data scientists. Actually, it's very popular in the insurance to predict how likely we are to get into an accident on a rainy day in Seattle. And and this is our the user and the audience are also those people, those the data scientists. They are sometimes the decision makers, but their job is eventually to give the information, to make the information more accessible for the decision makers in the organization. So here you can see two screens from the Machine Learning Studio, and I will of course show it to you live soon enough. Now let's go to our second Power BI poll question, please. Thank you, Eric, for facilitating our next Power BI question. Let's see how many of you have used Power BI before. All right, thank you guys for participating. Okay, so 33% of you have it in your company. This is very great to hear. I have it in Oni construction as well, and also as before in projects for other clients. And clients really like it because it's colorful and it has lots of dashboards. And so most of you are familiar and seen it in multiple presentations and other things. So thank you so much. Oh, I have a vague idea. I'm happy that you are here today, the people who have a vague idea what Power BI is, because we are going to share some insights with you. So thank you for voting again. And what is Power BI? Power BI, as I define it, is the most colorful tool that there is in the whole Office 365 stack. Power BI is part of Office 365, and it creates very beautiful dashboards and reports like you can see here. On the right side, you can see a nice report about the fish migration in Great Britain. It's a free data set. Hey, fish is good. And then also anime. I like anime movies. So this is the data set they have got about anime for Kogel, which is another important data source for many free data sets. And you can see it in the Power BI gallery in powerbi.com. And I will not show you the gallery today, but please go visit the data gallery and see all the colorful solutions for either business problems or fish problems or just solutions for data visualization about movies, entertainment, and basically anything that is of an interest to you in the planet. Now, the components are the Power BI desktop, the Office 365 Power BI, the mobile, the embedded, which is basically on Azure, using Azure data and connecting to it, and also embedded as an Azure application. Then we've got the Reaper server, on-premise for organizations, where your organization can basically create the report and share them inside, and also Insights apps, which is developing as we speak. Power BI is developing every month. They drop a new release, so it's a very fast developing tool. Now, it is a cloud solution, but as I've mentioned, it's also an on-premise solution and a mobile solution, and even on-premise corporate solution with the report server. I can share a Power BI file PBIX, just like I share any Excel spreadsheet. So go to powerbimicrosoft.com and explore a little more. The important thing to remember is the different audience. Our audience in this case is the business users and the managers. And they create part of the reports using existing data sets and so on. While our users are IT, finance, marketing, manufacturing, data analysts can use it as well, and developers can use it as well, although we are not writing code except for DAX queries, and some are, so developers might feel a little bit lost in this tool. Was a joke, hopefully you understand. And so this is Power BI in a nutshell. Now let's go to our next slide. All right. Okay, so who, what, why? Comparing Power BI and Azure Machine Learning is sometimes like comparing apples and oranges. This is the analogy that I like the best. It's not the same thing. It is not meant to be the same thing. And it is not something that we want to answer the same business question. Azure Machine Learning is a service and was created for developers and data scientists, while Power BI was created with the business users in mind and as part of the Office 365 suite. Azure Machine Learning, his main goal is predict the future, while Power BI visualizes the existing data and answers business questions ad hoc. Predict the future and while get insight and get information on something that has already happened in Power BI. So Power BI gives us the insights of the data that already exists, while Azure Machine Learning is also creating the next thing. So some useful sources that I have learned from and that you guys can learn from as well. First of all, not just Microsoft, Kaggle is a very, very useful site for any predictive analytic solutions and so on. And there are many competitions there for predictive analytics and many free data sets. I sometimes upload there solutions that are done using Python or R. I upload them using Power BI just for fun. So go and share those things. Of course, the Azure and the TechNet blogs. RAD Academy, those are wonderful friends from New Zealand, also MVPs that have got that. Worth your time to learn about Power BI, actually mostly, but they have got some machine learning because they are explaining predictive analytics in a very nice terms. And Excel Guru for Power BI, our local Vancouver ones. And that is a company that is giving lots of webinars and lots of training on Power BI and so on. Now let's dive into a little bit deeper. Let's get the data. So getting the data is basically the prediction itself is just the tip of the iceberg, as you can see here. Getting the data and transforming the data into the information is the base of this pyramid of the data analytics. So this is where we should start our journey with any kind of either Power BI or machine learning or any other tool or anything with predictive analytics, how to get the data. I hear enough stories about the data not being good enough or not being from the right data source. And there might be even arguments and debates regarding if this was the right data source, if this was the right place to get the data from, even in automatic data gathering from just such as IoT devices. So how do we get the data in either of those applications? First of all, let me open PowerBI. So for those of you who do not or not familiar, that well, the 15% I believe that are not familiar with it, this is PowerBI. I downloaded the PowerBI desktop to my desktop, and now I can get the data right here. This is a free tool, and I can get the data. And my data source right now is a text or CSV file that is right here. This is in my computer, and it's called flight delay data. And in Azure Machine Learning, I'm not in my desktop. I am in the browser. So actually, this is Power BI browser. Sorry about that. This is the Azure Machine Learning data gallery. And in Azure Machine Learning, when I have my experiment, I have got the data in the data sources. Okay, so I've got them in the data sets here on the left corner, as you can see. So I have my data sets and I have sample data sets that Azure is providing us to just basically play around with. One of them is the airport delay data and flights delay data, which I have chosen right here. So whenever I want to add a data set to my experience, I basically drag and drop that specific data set. So airport code data set is obviously already here, so I'll just demonstrate it by doing dragging and dropping it again. Okay, so this is how we get the data here. Now, how does the data looks like? Let's go back. We can visualize here the data. And those are slides that I've got in my deck, but I believe that showing the data is a little more interesting than just reviewing the presentation. So this is my data, the flight delayed data. It has 14 columns and you see too many rows. And we are working with those kind of large data sets in machine learning because we need many observations in order for them to be in order to have the prediction, to build the predictions. So we have the dates there, we have the origin airport, the carrier, the destination airport, and so on and so on. And the carrier arrival time, of course. And every one of those things has a little histogram on top, and we can see the statistics for the, in this case, arrival time. We can see the statistics for that, and the histogram for that. We can see the where exactly our specific airport falls in the whole observations data set. Meanwhile, in Power BI, we can see the data set that we have brought here. Just a second, right here. This is the array data. Those are all the flight delays data. It's the same data set, and we can see all the flights delayed right here, all the columns right here, and the rows, we can see them right there, but we don't see all the 200,000 rows. We see much less because we only see sample of the data. Now let's go back to the slide deck. How are we using Machine Learning Studio and machine learning versus the Power BI? So after we got the data, we collected the data and we have entered the data into our either experiment or model or into the Power BI. What are the next steps for us in this whole product, with this whole product? So the next steps is going to be data cleansing or cleaning the data, repeating rows and so on. I have a slide about this in a few seconds. Then I've got the data manipulations, then the model creations. Data manipulations, excuse me, one step behind. Data manipulations can be as adding dimensions, time dimension, changing data types, and so on. Then I create the model, and I evaluate the model. And part of the evaluation is scoring the model, and I see how good the model has predicted based on other results. And I go back to step 1 of data collection if I want to improve the model or I want to test the model again. Why is the apples and oranges right here? Because this part is done well in Power BI as well. Well, this part done in machine learning lab mostly. I'm not saying that the data cleansing is not done in machine learning as well. There are many modes for data cleansing as well, but I would say that if you divide between those modes, that would be a recommended one. It all starts with the right questions and the right business question, and why are we even doing this? Just like using any other tool, just knowing about the process, knowing about those 5 steps that we are doing in Machine Learning Studio or in Power BI is not enough. What we want to do is actually do something meaningful for the business. So our case study that I've just shown the data collection for, the data entering the data for, is about airplanes. Airplanes are never late. And this data set was added as a CSV file, and it exists in the Azure Machine Learning Lab. Anybody can log in and see this data set. We're going to analyze the data sets of flights during the month of October. All right, so getting the data, we've just seen it, how we're doing it in Azure Machine Learning versus how we're doing it in Power BI. In Power BI, we can actually add it as a SQL query if we are coming from SQL Server, also in my Azure Machine Learning as well, or from other data sources as well. Visualizing the data. While Azure Machine Learning is pretty limited, and what we have seen is basically this, Power BI has much more capacity of data visualization, and we will get there in a second. So this one is built in just data visualization just by dragging and dropping to the visuals that I've dragged into my report and adding the right columns and the right rows in there. I can create tons and tons of visualizations, and I'm not even talking about the whole Q&A mode and other modes that provide us with much data insights about our data. So I can even filter the data, and I can see what exactly is behind this whole data set. So if I want to see the raw data itself, I can have canceled flight count and delay more than 15 minutes count, and this is the airport. I can have the data visualizations basically built in from the model almost. While we are here at the Power BI console, I will show you another thing that I can do with the data. I can add measures and I can add dimensions. So while at the Machine Learning Studio, we've added it as a separate data set for airport codes and airport ID. Here we added this as separate data sets as well, but we've connected it rather easily using the connectors in the ERD diagram. While in Machine Learning Studio, it will be much harder for us to connect them using joins in the model, and I will show this in the studio as well. So this is data visualization in Power BI. Now, visualizing the data in Power BI, this slide is just for fun, let's say it this way. I took that data set and I entered it into the Q&A, into data insights mode. So all this was created about the quick insights for flight delay, by Power BI itself. I did not create that part of the visualization. And we can see how powerful Power BI tool is. So next time you are importing your data from Power BI, just click on Quick Insights, and this is what you are going to get. So now we are going to the next stage, which is Oh, I have a question here. Can I consume an machine learning web service with Power BI, or can I Power predicted model in Power BI? Okay, so you can import to Power BI the data sets for this question. You can create as we have seen. In machine learning, you cannot consume a web service with an ML web service with Power BI. No, right now they are not connected on this level, but I am now I've been in build for the past 2 days, 3 days actually, and it was a great conference and many new and exciting stuff that were announced there. So through Graph or through IoT Hub, perhaps, those things can be connected and consumed between them. I cannot share the entire solution right now because actually I haven't tried it yet myself how to connect all of them together. But right now they are not, you cannot add those things to one another. Thank you for the question. Sorry, I've seen it just now. Okay, so next thing we are going to do operations with the data. We are going to do manipulations with the data. And the first of them is going to be data cleansing. Now, why do I even need data cleansing? Because in all those 200,000 rows, there might be rows that are empty, that might be duplications, there might be rows that are not good for us to add to work with, and we need to clean them either in Power BI or in Azure Machine Learning. Obviously, each of those tools has got its own way of cleansing this data. So we can change the data types with a specific model in Azure Machine Learning, and we can change the data types in Power BI using the query editor. We can clean the duplication, clean first, last rows, and so on using the consecutives model. The one thing that we are doing in Power BI directly on code is using DAX queries and R in order to cleanse our data as well. While in Azure Machine Learning, we can do the SMOD, which will increase rows and facts number. What does it mean? If we had 200,000 observations and it's just simply not enough for us, we can add through statistics some observations that make sense that they have happened, and then we have suddenly 300,000 observations, so 250,000 observations, which will help us to build a better prediction model. So this is something that Azure Machine Learning will do for us. Now, other data manipulations might be selecting columns, which is a mode in Azure Machine Learning Lab, and also in Power BI, we can select which columns we are displaying. Creating joins. The joins and all the SQL and R manipulations are available, through SQL are available in both tools. R and Python are available in Azure Machine Learning only. There are some R manipulations available in Power BI, and I will explain a little further next. Create an ERD, which we have already seen through the connection between the tables and the dimension and the fact tables that we have seen in Power BI. And in Azure Machine Learning, we're doing it through joins with another table. And other data manipulations are the Q&A functionality that was recently added to Power BI. It's not exactly manipulation. This Power BI is doing a different way of visualizing the data. You ask native questions of your model, and Power BI gives you a data visualization answers. And it looks very similar to the ones in machine learning. So I'm in machine learning lab. So I'm just assuming there was some kind of a data sharing out there inside Microsoft. In Azure Machine Learning, only if you build a method to do that. So let's do some of those. Let's see some of those things live in the tools. Let's start with Power BI. Sorry. So we have got here our flights on time prediction added. And we have got the average delay time graph. But where do we edit the queries from? So we edit the query right here and edit query. Okay, of course. Sorry about that. I did not add the model live. So in edit the query, this is where you will select the columns for all your needs. Let's go here. Let's go here. Oh, this one will work probably. Yes, this one will work. So here I can select the column. I can join several of the columns. If I can delete one of the columns and so on, and also change the data type and do other manipulations and filtering of the column, if you can see. And arrive time, arrive delay, I can change it into date time regular format, and so on. So this is where I do this in Power BI, including keep rows, remove column, and other manipulations. This is just like SQL query, select from where, but in a user-friendly mode. This is why business users can use it very successfully. And it kind of looks like the ribbon like Excel, but I want, and even allows us to merge queries and append queries, which are different things. As you can see, this is adding rows, where this is merging the queries as a table and creating some kind of a view or another table for us to see, for those of us that are working with SQL. Now let's go back to Machine Learning Studio. In this experiment, in Machine Learning Studio, we can join the data using this model. So just like I've dragged before from the saved dataset, the dataset as a model, I can also drag the join from the data or the filters, the join, and so on from the consecutive model. I can also search if I, for example, black out and don't remember where I took the join from. So I can just search the join, add the joins data to my model, and this is will result the join data to be here. I can select my columns with join data right here on the right. So I'm launching the column selector, and there we go. I can select which other columns I want from my data set in order for this to be included in the experiment and the analysis to be performed on it. Kind of like the same thing as we have seen in Power BI before that. Alrighty. This was just one of the many models that the Azure Machine Learning has. Of course, in about an hour, I cannot review all of them, but especially when we compare the two tools. But I am sure that there will be other opportunities for that. Now let's talk a little bit about predictions. So first of all, we have got the main steps in creating an experiment or a report. In Power BI, we've got the report that we are creating, while in Azure Machine Learning, we are creating the experiments, as we have seen in the console. So the first thing will be, again, getting the data, then clean the data or clean the query, prepare the data, create measures and dimensions, and here adding columns, calculations, meta-scene data types, joins, SQL manipulations, and so on. Also metadata sets. Create connections using, setting the metadata, create connection using the ERD or the joins. Now we create the data and visualization and Q&A and analyze in Power BI, where here and publish in our dashboard, where here the process is completely different. We are choosing the model, the mathematical model, training the algorithm, scoring, evaluating, and saving the trained model for later use. Or we can create a web service that is going to be on Azure, and then we can enter the data into a web service whenever we like and get the prediction. Again, apples and oranges, different things that we are doing. Up till the middle almost, the things are very similar, but later on, there is a difference. So you just need to know what to use when for your needs. Which questions are we asking our model? So you can see the different questions that we are asking. If we generally don't If we what kind of questions we're asking on Azure Machine Learning, how do we predict? Well, in Power BI is what is the average maximum minimum, which airport, for example, has the most late arrivals, what is the correlation and the trend between the weather and the delay time. Well, Azure Machine Learning Lab, we can ask about the correlation, but much farther, we can understand the whole model and the whole pattern of the behavior of large-scale sets of model. Azure Machine Learning Lab will deal with larger data sets than Power BI usually will deal with, although Power BI is perfectly capable of dealing on the desktop up to 1 gigabyte of data, which our CSV file is not even there yet, close to be there yet. And if you have Power BI Premium, the data sets are much larger, larger in the capacity. So what is a prediction model? Which algorithm is the best fit to predict the results depending on the data? We're basically using some kind of algorithm. We're using the statistic. Whoever was lucky enough to study statistics in high school, we are using some of those statistical predictions, statistical model, in order to understand what is going to happen in the future. That's the whole problem that we are solving with Azure Machine Model. Main model types are anomaly detection. We want to see the one observation that is weird, that is not something that, and we want to usually exclude this observation from our set, from our data set. And we want to do classifications. We want to understand which group everything belongs to, and for how many clusters we are, and for how many groups we can divide it, and also automatically divide it into groups. We want to do clustering, which is not exactly like classification, because when we are clustering the data, we are automatically creating the groups. We are not telling the data now you are in this category and you are in that category. We are the model is doing it himself according to the precision point, and regressions of many types. So this is a print screen from the Azure Machine Learning Lab of the already ready trained models that you can try and evaluate. And I see a question here relevant for about 10 minutes ago from Frank. How can we eliminate valid outliers when we do data cleansing? Okay, so we have got, when we are doing the data cleansing, if I come back to this part of the model, is that we need to understand what are the obvious things that we are cleaning, such as empty things or errored things and error data and so on. This is what basically most of the data analyst work is going to the data and understanding what went wrong and creating algorithms in order to clear the data and to make it usable. And there is a whole theory around that. I would like to take it offline and explain some of those models. In Azure Machine Learning Lab, just a second. In Azure Machine Learning Lab, in the experiment, for example, we have got clean missing data as well, which is going to, instead of eliminate those valid observation, is going to clean it. For example, the observation has just date, but it doesn't have the month and the year, but is close to other observations that were made in the month and year. So this is going to clean it. Just one example. There are many, many more, and it's a whole theory around it. So let's go back to slide deck. Thank you for this question, Frank. And statistics. This is the most basic thing that data analysis field cannot deal without, because this is what it's based on. And here I'm not very heavy on statistics. It's just average. This is our basic prediction model. This was the average number of flights that were delayed. Then we have got the moving average, for which the flight delays is the most relevant flight delays are in the last 20 months or 20 days, and the rest is not very connected to our model, so we are not going to add it to our experience. Then weighted moving average. Now we are putting different weights into the average. And next one will be the single exponential smoothing. which is kind of like the weighted moving average, but it has an alpha that is between 1 and 0.1 and 0.9 and chosen through a local optimal minimum. What does it mean? That the exponential smoothing, the alpha depends on the local best result for our next observation, for our next observations. So based on this prediction model, this is just the basic one, we are going to create the prediction in, okay. Based on this prediction model, we are going to create a prediction in a Power BI, actually. Now, as you can see, our analogy from apples and oranges, this is an orange that tries to be an apple. It tries to do the prediction analytics. Power BI is not very good at this, but there are several things that Power BI does pretty great. And this is the exponential smooth is the one thing that Power BI can do as well as Machine Learning Studio. So now, how did we do that? I will show it to you right here. Now, this was already pre-made because I wanted to make sure that it actually works during the demo. I will just go through what has happened here. And here we have got the average delay time for all flights each day for during the month of October. So those are all our observations. What I've done, I've dragged from here the date. I have dragged to the x-axis. I've chosen the visualization of the line, first of all. I've dragged here the date. I've dragged the department delay 15 minutes, so departure delay more than 15 minutes, and I created the average here. And the average measure is just created by clicking on average in the data field. And then I went to this pane. And for this data visualization, and it is available for only few data visualizations, especially the line one, I have chosen the trend line to create a trend. Just a second, trend line, mean line. Here we go. I've chosen the forecast. The forecast is one of the last things on the pane, and I have given it a name, the next 7 days, the next delay time. I met the forecast length, ignored last 10 points because we are talking about, first of all, to compare the model to the actual data set, and then to understand to predict for the future. And this is our confidence interval. What is the alpha? We don't know. This is something automatically inside Power BI. And the seasonality is in 7 points because I assume that 7 days are might be similar behaviors of what we know. We can ignore last, for example, only 7 points, and then this will change our model. As you can see, this is maybe perhaps more accurate model of the prediction. So this is the prediction in gray. This is the maximum and the minimum time of the average flight delays time that is past 15 minutes in this specific date. And I've also added several trend lines in blue and purple. Those are the maximum and the minimum trend lines. So I can see where are the maximum and the minimum results, and of course to see their numbers. I've also added the average trend line, and I can see here in purple that the trend line is going higher, even if I predict in the prediction model, and also in the trend line itself when I see for the existing observations. What does it mean? Well, it can mean, and now I can come back right here, the trend line that is going up of the average delay time, that can mean several things. It can mean that this is now the end of the October and it's Thanksgiving and the weather changes for the worst in some of the airports, and also the trend line doesn't continue for the predicted data. So in November it might be better, but we will never know. So this is how we predict the results using an orange that is trying to beat an apple using Power BI for the prediction. More options for that exist in Power BI are based on R. It can do K-clustering and it can do other things. And if you go to the slides deck later on and click on the links, you can probably see and see some of the blogs and some blog posts that were created by my colleagues. Such as Christian and Lila in their blog posts. So please go and review how Power BI do predictions models as well. Meanwhile, in Azure Machine Learning Lab, unfortunately, the ETS, the exponential smoothing model, was basically deprecated. So what does it mean? That an apple cannot be an orange. And also it was just probably not precise enough or not used enough. I can only guess. I don't work for Microsoft, so I have no idea. We can edit. Okay, so let's go and see how did we predict the flights in the experiments in flight delay or the flight delay prediction. Now here I predicted the flight delay, not the average flight delay, but for the specific airport for the specific flights. So let's run through very quickly through this experiment in Azure Machine Learning Lab and see all the stages that we've talked about in the presentations in the presentation in the slide right here. I'm not going to click on run right now. I ran the model beforehand, and you'll have to believe me, this is the green check marks. This is what they're telling that the model has run successfully beforehand, because it will take several minutes for the model to run in the cloud. Thanks, Eric. We have 9 minutes. 8 actually. So, okay, so what have we got here? We have got the flight delay dataset and the weather dataset. Why 2 datasets? Because now we are seeing how the flight delays are influenced by the weather. Remember that in Power BI, I could only guess that the weather at the end of October is probably influencing the observations and the flight delay increase. Here, I can predict it. I can predict this as how the weather is actually influencing that. The first thing that I'm doing for both is the converting the data sets, so adding missing values, setting, and so on. And on the right side, you have got the pane. We have got the pane that is helping us with that. And this is for Frank's questions, or no, even earlier questions that how do I clean the data. So this is how I clean the data here using those specific models and statistics with Azure Machine Learning. Then I'm selecting the columns that are relevant for me in this specific data set. You're launching the column selection, clean the missing data, empty observations, and so on. All this is to clean and prepare the data. Then I'm joining the data because those are different data sets, just like I joined the data in Power BI, as you can remember with ERD, when I joined the data of the airport name and the delay times. Here I joined the data for the weather and the flights. And now, after I have joined the data and created the data set and created my data sets, I am basically comparing between 2 different models. I'm not just predicting, I want to know which model is going to predict the best. One is the 2-class boosted decision tree, and the other one is the 2-class logistic regression. Now, regression is something that we know from actually Excel, linear regression, and so on. This is a more advanced statistics model that unfortunately I cannot give exactly all the parameters of this regression and how it needs to be set out. After I run both of those models separately, I evaluate the model that has been created. Now, this evaluation model, how can I even evaluate? Because I choose part of the population, part of my observations to be the part that is the model is trained on, and part of the population I choose as the part that the model is evaluated on. So those are existing observations. Remember, ignore less 7 dots or less 7 observations in Power BI or less 10 observations in Power BI. So this is exactly what is what is happening in score model, and those scores are going to evaluate model. One sentence back, the model is trained, then the model is scored based on the data that is coming from the observations that were not used to train the model. And this score goes to evaluate the model. The model evaluation is between the two statistical different models that we have used in order to understand which model predicted the results of the flight being late better. And here, if we visualize it, we can see that those two score data sets have different results. The blue one performs slightly better than the red one. The blue, so we should use the blue one. We should in order to predict the flights being late, depending on the how weather is affecting the flights being late. We should use the blue prediction model and not the red prediction model. What was the blue prediction model? It was this one, the left one, it was the two classes boosted decision tree. Why it was better? Because we have ran it, we have checked it, and this is how we are and this is how we evaluated and got this specific answer. So this is what Azure Machine Learning is doing for us and not Power BI. This is the difference between the two tools and when we are using each of them in our predictive analytics scenario. Now, if I'm going back to the presentation, I will skip those slides because I have 3 minutes, and I will give you another poll to have. So Eric, the last poll, please. Okay. Okay, so just the poll, please, Eric, if I may, very, very quickly. Very, very quickly, just to understand if we understand the business question. So I really want you guys to at least have something out of this session. Is the main goal of the session is not to see the model, but is to understand when we use what. All right, so I really hope that you answered to this poll. The difference between using the tool successfully and unsuccessfully is actually knowing which business question we want to answer. If we want to know how the weather affects the flight delay, we will probably use Azure Machine Learning to predict those things, while when we want the average or the mean or just the trend is the Power BI. Okay, so let's go last slide and I'm gone.
63% said help desk performance, 20% weather prediction model, and 20% discovering how much fuel should British Columbia purchase in order to avoid further gas price increase.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for this vote. It was, I hope you enjoyed thinking about that. Thanks for participating. So this is our last slide, as promised in the last slide. Azure who, what, why we're using it. So here I summarize basically that the data scientists and the developers is what Azure Machine Learning is for. And the next stage is the IoT Hub and the Azure AI. And those are things that were presented and built and emphasized and built so much for the last couple of days that I cannot tell you how important it is to get into those things and to continue your journey with predictive analytics using those tools. So I'm very pumped and excited and overwhelmed actually of the information. So check it out. And while Power BI users are the business users, and this is for you to communicate with the business and to visualize your data for the business. So I guess that questions will be answered later on. I want to thank Eric. I want to thank also Microsoft for giving me a room here because I'm in Seattle today, so I'm in Redmond, and Microsoft helped me with the room. Please contact me for anything and for any questions. I have a Twitter account, I have a blog and email, and I would love to hear from you back. So Eric, I think it's 6 p.m., so thank you so much.
Hi, Yana. Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. I shared with you all the questions asked during your presentation, and I don't see any further questions unless anyone else can think of one right now. Just for the attendees, we'll be sharing the session recordings at the end of the week. So please stay tuned. We'll be sending out an email when this become available, as well as the PowerPoint slides. They're actually already up on the website. So if you want to go and take a look, go visit back the PAS Marathon website, and you can click on the name of the session, and you'll see at the bottom of the page accompanying materials. You'll see the PDF version of the slides for today and for all the other sessions that happened previous to this one. I have a question from David Wade. Further study resources?
Yes, so Azure Machine Learning
Sorry, any
Lab.
books that you can recommend, etc.
Okay, so I had this slide, especially if you are talking about statistics. So I had the slides right here. So those are blogs that I recommend, and those are some of the books that I recommend. Actually, Twitter recommends, not Ken. Nuggets are very nice organizations that does those things. And you can basically also just go and do the course. There is a course that I've done of Azure Machine Learning. You should go and do this course, and they basically teach you from scratch. And this is how I learned everything about Azure Machine Learning. As for Power BI, there is one, Adam Saxton, guy in a cube. Start from the first video, and slowly you'll just get there. And it's very fun journey. I must say that the Azure Machine Learning was more on the statistics, heavy on the statistics side. So it was a little bit challenging, while the whole, my journey with Power BI was nothing but fun.
Perfect. We have one more question. Is it possible to share this presentation? Well, Eduardo, it's there already in PDF format. And as for Yana's Twitter account, it's in the first few slides. So if you go, again, go back to the slides that are already posted on the website, you can scroll through and LinkedIn, everything. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there we go.
So I think we don't have any more questions. No, I don't believe so. So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SQLPass, hashtag SQLPass as well, and also our new Instagram account, @PassCommunity. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.